Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second session. Today we will focus on the PlusPortals, and Ubeda will lead the presentation. And like he said, if you have any questions, please send your questions to the panelists, and then we will answer your questions. And if not, Ubeda will take over, and then he will get back to us. And today you will see some features here, and some features that will be presented which we never had. And our job as the Instructional Technology Department is to bring you the technology, provide what is available, and you, your department, your building, you can decide which features to use, which ones not to use. You will see some features that are similar to Google Classroom. And last spring, as we went into the online education, we decided to utilize Google Classroom across the board. Elementary schools use different platforms. So we're going to let you know that these tools, these features exist. And then you, like I said, you, your department, your building can decide, okay, this is useful, let's use this. And or we're going to continue using Google Classroom. That will be totally up to you. So don't feel that these are going to be like mandatory tools to utilize. But like I said, you're going to see that these are going to be useful. So that being said, Ubeda, let's get going. It's 9:07.
Okay. Good morning again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yesterday, we focused on the gradebook, and just at a basic level, as I said yesterday, the gradebook is where we take our attendance and we put in our grades, regardless of what those grades consist of, right? Could be skills grades for K-2, overall course grades, narratives, and so on. The portal here is where everybody logs in, because no parents and students are logging into your gradebook. Everybody logs into the portal using that same link that we discussed yesterday, where it's just plusportals.com/SANY. Everybody uses the same link at every school to get logged in here to the portal, but what they see is going to depend on their user type, and that depends on the permissions that the admin team has set up. So parents see one set of things, students see another set, teachers see, and so on. Okay? So what we'll cover today is the types of things that you can do. Some of it is sending out email communication. Some of it is posting content, again, if you decide to do that. A lot of similar functionality to Google Classroom and other LMSs. And then some of it is looking up student information. Okay? So I'll give you just kind of a brief layout where we've logged in. Again, we've logged in as Jessica here, the shining example for the rest of SANY. You're going to see your name, and once the staff pictures get loaded, you're going to see your face smiling back at you or snarling, depending on how picture day went for you. And you're going to see these 4 icons next to your name. Okay? And these are alerts, emails, notifications, and calendar events. Okay? In fact, if you look to the right, we're seeing the upcoming calendar events listed here. This is coming from the school calendar. If, as a teacher, you add items to the calendar, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you will also see them here because the calendar functions is what we call a combined calendar. Okay? And if I scroll down, I also see boxes here where the school can post information like announcements, notifications, and alerts, school links and files like maybe the student handbook, staff handbook, and so on, and can make it visible to only certain groups. The main box we're seeing here is a list of all of your sections, same ones we saw yesterday in the gradebook. However, what you might notice is that here we're seeing the long name. Okay, it doesn't have the grade level listed. This is to make it easier for parents and students. Now, if you're someone who teaches, say, math across multiple grade levels, now it's just saying mathematics for all of them instead of 5th grade and 6th grade and so on. I will show you in a little bit how you can change the names, again, similar to what we did yesterday in the gradebook, and it syncs between both of them. But before we do that, I'm going to point out a couple of things. This menu up top will discuss some of the items in here, starting with the first one here that says gradebook. This is how we opened up our gradebook yesterday, but I want to point out 2 things. This main menu item over here that says gradebook will open up the gradebook using whatever setting you configured in the gradebook. And if you remember back to yesterday, you had 2 options, either open in my last used gradebook, whatever I was last working on, or open in a specific gradebook. That's one of the things where we told homeroom teachers you could set it to always open in the homeroom. Okay? But next to all of my classes here, I see this column with a gradebook icon for each of my sections. So if Jessica had set it to open her gradebook always in the homeroom gradebook, that's what this link at the top would do. But if she knows that right now, specifically, she wants to access her social studies gradebook, she can always just click on this link right here, and that will open up specifically whichever one she clicked beside. Okay? So you've got both options to be flexible there. Before I get talking about some of these other items, just because I mentioned it here, in the top right over here, right beside the help button, and I'll make note of that here and also towards the end, that I've got a user guide, just like we saw yesterday in the gradebook, and videos that I can access, short videos about doing certain things in the portal. I'm going to click on Jessica's name here and choose the one that says Settings. Okay. And just as a quick note, no one's going to see this button that says Back to Manage Accounts. That's only because I'm logged in as an admin. Okay. But one of the things that I can do here is, one, I see the course name as I saw it in the gradebook, 1 ELA, 1 Math, even though it's displaying the long name, what we call the description. If I want to rename any courses, I can click here where it says Display Name for Staff and type in something else. And if you had renamed it already in the gradebook, you will see that it's already reflected here and vice versa. If you rename something over here, again, for just your purposes, it will also be renamed in the gradebook for you. You also have the ability to customize the order. If I want to set it to be a custom order, I can click here and then I can move them around as I see fit. I'll keep it, again, alphabetically here, but I can sort them in whatever order I want. And if I change the name here, I'm going to see it reflected everywhere that I see the name of the course. I'll see it reflected as such if I rename it. Okay. I won't cover everything in here. Some of the things we'll get to later. But what I'm going to quickly do here is just set up where it says assignment. Post to calendar is already selected. I'm going to select visible to parents and students and select the default category of homework. You may not see anything under default category. We'll talk more about that here, but I just want to set that as default so you'll see it in a little bit. And then I'll scroll down to the bottom and click OK. Just before I get into some of these menu items, I want to also point out something else here, which has been newly added, which is this actions column over here, right next to the number of students I have in each section. If I click on these 3 dots, I see information that I can access. So I can go to the discipline tab. I can go to my list of students. I can add various items that we're going to talk about. Class announcement, an alert, an assignment, a quiz, and so on. Okay, I'm going to show you going to the class page where you can see that, but just know that you can access most of the items right here from this actions button. Okay, and I'll start quickly with just expanding on one thing, which is going to my students menu, because this is something that even if you're not posting content on the portal, you'll probably come in here and use that so I can look up student information. Okay? Because it's going to take me to my list of students and I can find information about them. So I see them listed here with their pictures, assuming we have pictures for them in the student information system, and I can click on one of their pictures, and now I see various options. Okay, I see this, and some of these you saw in the gradebook as well, but I click on contacts. I see a list of the parent information. I click on view demographics. I'm going to be looking at information about the student, homeroom, birth date, email, student ID, etc. And even though this is not yet loaded yet, once it is, once the grid schedule is loaded, and that might not be the case for first grade, excuse me, to answer a question that came up yesterday, this is where I would be able to see their grid schedule. Again, this hasn't been set up yet, but once it has, you'll be able to look at a student's grid schedule this way. I can see their overall progress coming from all of their classes, so not just the ones that I teach. I'll see their average and grade coming from that, assuming obviously, I'm using a first grade teacher, they won't have overall course grades, but for those that do 3 and up, you'll see that here. And this is the overall grade versus recent scores over here. That's individual column grades coming over from the gradebook, test 1, homework 2, etc. I will see those over here with the name of the course listed in front of it. I will see the students' attendance totals, and I want to clarify that this is the official attendance coming back from the office. We discussed yesterday that as a teacher, you'll be filling in attendance, perhaps absences and tardies. The office might change that to excused and unexcused and so on. And here in this box, this is where you're going to be seeing the official attendance coming back, the official daily attendance coming back from the office. And then the last thing we're going to see here is this coursework box, where you're going to see the combined coursework that has been posted for a student. We're going to talk today about posting various types of coursework, like assignments, discussions, quizzes, and so on. And this is where you can see for this one student, here is everything that has been assigned to them. You can filter by the different types. You can filter from upcoming coursework, past due, and so on. Okay. So I'm going to scroll back to the top. Once I bring this up, I do have the ability to switch between any of my classes. I don't have to go back home to change to a different one, but I'll click back home just so we go back to that page and center where we're looking at. Obviously, this is a great day for my internet connection to be slow. So I'm going to go across some of the items on top over here. I will start with, when we discussed gradebook already, I'll start by looking at the calendar. And right now, the calendar is showing us the information, or only the information, that has been posted from the school's Google Calendar feeding in over here. Okay? One thing to note is that when I'm looking at the calendar, and this is really the same for everyone, not just teachers, but also parents and students, I can filter to see only certain event categories. So this is the academic activity calendar that's being fed in from Google. But if as a teacher you're going to be posting content to the calendar, parents and students are going to be able to filter for just those items. So I'll click here on top where it says New Event. And I'm just going to add some basic details and delete them here just so you see the process. We'll call this a homework assignment. Okay, I can add in some more details here into the summary and the location. It's not required. Choose who it's going to be visible to, parents and students, and set a start and an end date and time. So I will set this to start at, let's say, 9:30 and end at 11. And if I check all day event, it just removes the times that I'm putting in only dates. I can select the category, which right now is just homework. These categories are controlled on the admin side. You can't create your own calendar categories like you can gradebook categories, and that's deliberate because remember what we just talked about on that filter drop-down box. Parents and students will be able to filter to look at the calendar, look at only certain events. So if one of you creates a category called homework, someone else creates HW, someone creates math HW, it's not going to be as useful for them. So this is something that you can discuss with the instructional technology team and have them create the appropriate categories for you. They have told me that they accept bribes in either steak or chocolate. So, for what it's worth, I'll just pass that information along. I can make an event repeat, daily, weekly, monthly, and so on. And then this is going to be common throughout posting content on the portal. I'm going to choose which section or sections I'm posting it to. And this is an important point. This is not a personal calendar, right? This is not for you to say that I have a dentist appointment next week and, yoga or taekwondo the following week. That's not what this is for. You already have a calendar for that. This is specifically for you to be able to post calendar events to your class pages. And there's a question here about, will our assignments created in the gradebook automatically input into the calendar? No, although what you're going to see in a minute, that's a good question. When we go to actually posting assignments, you'll see that you have the ability to, and that's those defaults that I checked a little bit earlier. I can create an assignment here in the portal. add a column for it in the gradebook, and add it to the calendar at the same time. And no, if you bring in something from Google Classroom, it's not going to come in here. So I'm going to choose English Language Arts here. Okay, and then these other items are also going to be common throughout adding content to the portal. The ability to attach a file, including from Google Drive. So if you already have content in Google Drive, I can include it here when I'm posting types of content, and I can also include a link. I've got two boxes here, the link URL, meaning the actual web address, and then also the link text, whatever I want to call this. So I'll click and I'll put the Rediker website here, just to see that as an example, and I will save this. Okay, so I see my homework assignment over here. Now I'm sure all of you have used calendar software before. This allows you, if I hover over it, I see the details of it, but I can edit this in line. So if I hover over it and double click, then it's just going to bring it up over here where I can make changes. I can also click and drag if I want to move this to be on Thursday instead of Wednesday. I can do that. It's just as simple as clicking and dragging. Okay, and I can also, if I hover over it and click the X, I can delete it from here, which I'll do in a minute. But I can also look at the calendar in different views. I can look at a day view, a week view, a month view, agenda view, which is more like a planner view. Okay, but I will look at it here in the weekly view, and depending on the view that I'm looking for, this is an assignment right now that's listed as being 1.5 hours. I can click and drag and make it longer. So I have inline editing capability just like I would in any other calendar program. At the top here, I can click on Manage Events to see a list of all of my events and make edits to them from here. Click on the pen and paper. But I don't really need to do this because I can edit in line. I mean, you're always welcome to come in here. This used to be the only way to edit calendar events, but it's much easier to just edit in line. And I do also have the ability to print events if you're very much a fan of paper, not so much of trees. And I can also export events over here if I want to export them to be brought into another calendar program. And let me just go back and delete this here. So I will clean up after myself. Any other questions on the calendar? Again, you'll see in just a little bit when we go to adding assignments, I wanted to show you manually adding a calendar event here. But a lot of the ones where you might actually post here, I can post an assignment, and as I'm doing it at the same time, also post it to the calendar. You'll see that in just a little bit. No, there's a question on can you synchronize with Google Classroom. The only integration with Google Classroom is what we saw yesterday on the gradebook side, where you're doing that in Google Classroom, and you can bring in that information to the gradebook. There is no synchronization here with Google Classroom because really a lot of the functionality is duplicated. And this is where Hadir was mentioning at the beginning. This is to show you what's possible, not to tell you that you have to use this instead of Google Classroom. You may decide to continue using Google Classroom, but this is to show you what's possible over here, not to dictate this is what you have to use. All right, I'm going to skip school announcements. That's just showing you the same information on the main page, but I'm going to click on this important one here that says email. Okay? This is where I can send out communication to my parents and students. Okay, now keep in mind, this is not intended to be a replacement for Gmail. You will continue to use that, but you'll see in just a minute why I may want to start sending communications from here, at least initiating them. Okay? So on the left-hand side, I'm going to click where it says new email. Okay. See your name and your email listed there. I'm sure you've all used email before. I just want to point out one thing here is that we have made the to box function similarly to a blind carbon copy. So even if I put all of the email addresses in here, which is normally a terrible idea when I'm sending a mass message, it's going to hide those. The recipients will only see their email address listed. only the CC field is publicly visible to everyone. Now, I can manually type in emails here, but you're not likely to ever need to do that because the purpose of sending here is to be able to not have to keep your own address book. On the right-hand side, if I click here where it says Add Recipients, okay, I see these different options, and the one you're going to be using almost exclusively, perhaps you might use groups, is the one that says Students and Parents, okay? And then you see a list of all of your sections. Again, if you had renamed any of them, you'd see them listed as such over here. I can select individually, or I can click the checkbox beside section name to select all of them. Now, in the case of Jessica, she has the same roster for all of her students because she's teaching first grade. But if you are a specials teacher or if you're teaching in the high school and you have a different set of students for all of your subjects, then you would get a different set of students here because you can check all of them, because I do have the ability to send to all of the parents and students that I teach in one shot. Now, whatever section or sections we select, we're seeing the list of students here. We're not seeing the parent names. That doesn't mean we can't send to the parents. Of course we can. But you're making the selections on who you're sending to based on the students. So again, I can select them individually, or I can click the checkbox beside recipient name, and that will select all of them, even those on subsequent pages. You see it's listing 15 here per page. At the very bottom, this is where I decide, is this email going to students, parents, or both? Okay, obviously you have to choose one of them, otherwise why are we in here sending an email? Okay. I'm going to click, and before I do that, let me be very clear here. Parents and students are not logging into the portal yet, but this part is live. If you send out an email, they will get it. So don't do that unless you actually intend to send them an email. That's an important point. Don't worry, I'm going to go right up until the point of sending it, but not actually send it out. So I will click next, and then I get this preview window that says, here are all the people that will receive the email, and here are all the people that will not receive it, okay? And it lists anyone who's a parent has a parent indicator after their name. So a few of the students don't yet have emails in the student information system, and some of the parents don't as well. But for a teacher, that's useful for you because you know who's not going to get this. We may need to contact them a different way. I'm going to click OK here, and I see the addresses fill in. Again, just because you see the addresses doesn't mean that the parents and students are seeing that. Any one user will only see their email address listed. I'll put in a subject here. Okay. Just as we saw before, we can put in attachments from my computer from Google Drive. And in the body of the message itself, you're not limited to plain text. I can put in bulleted lists. I can customize the text. Okay. And you may have noticed that at the bottom, you got a message that says, right below the email signature button, that says, this email has been saved at the date and the timestamp. Okay? So like a regular mail client, it's saving for me as I go along. I don't need to worry about, I spend all this time putting together an email, and I've lost that work. So I have the ability, it's saving for me. I can also customize my email signature over here, put that in, and I can copy and paste it if I've got it from elsewhere. Just be careful when you're copying and pasting. Sometimes the formatting doesn't look as you expected, including copying and pasting into here, because I can embed images. I can even edit the HTML if I want to impress my coworkers. I do also have in the bottom right a manual save button. You see again, it popped up here. Just be careful, it's right by the send button over here. Okay. And again, I'm not actually going to send this out, But this is the process that you do. Now, what are the advantages of sending out email from here? One, as a teacher, you don't have to keep a separate address book. Every time I go to send out an email, it's going to the latest email address on file for the parents, right? Because parents may change their email frequently. You don't know what it's been changed to. The student emails are not likely to change because they're given by the school, but you don't need to keep a separate address book for the parents. The other thing is when you send out an email, it goes to the parents' email, regardless of where they check it, Gmail, Outlook, on their phone, and it goes internally to the portal, okay? Which means it's going to them in both locations, and they're more likely to see it and read it in one of those locations, okay? I'm going to click here, back to email on the bottom right. And on the left-hand side, if I click on where it says drafts, I see the email that I was working on. I can click the pen and paper to go back and continue working on it, or I can click the trash can to delete it. I also see a record of anything that I've sent out from here. And I also see the same 3 folders listed under archived email. Because what happens is every year when your school transitions to the next academic year, your emails will be archived here in the portal so that you still have access to them, but you're not starting the year off with hundreds of messages in your inbox. And to elaborate on a point I mentioned earlier, when you send it out, it's going to the parent's email and it's going internally to the portal. Again, what they're seeing over here. And just like as a teacher, you saw a little icon next to your picture for emails that have come in. Parents see the same thing for each of their students. Now they can respond to you in the portal, and that will send the response back to you in Gmail and then here in the portal. If they respond to you from the email, it only goes back to the Gmail. So what that means is whenever a response is sent to you, or if they initiate a message to you, it's always going to go to Gmail, but if it's done here in the portal, it will also show up here. As a result, a lot of teachers like to initiate the message from here, and then they'll continue that message in Gmail. And just to clarify, Harun is mentioning that if a parent sends you an email, or let's say the school sends you an email, you might not receive it here if it's just sent directly to the Gmail. Only emails initiated through the portal will you find in here. Now there's another question here. Does Rediker keep records of sent emails in students' accounts so that I can run a report to see how many times a student parent has been contacted by who? It's a good question. We do keep records, but it's not accessible to you on the teacher side, right? On the admin side, they have a record of emails that were sent. They see who opened them and so on, but that's something that's only accessible on the admin side. It's not on the teacher side. And they can see who opened it, who's not getting messages because maybe there's something wrong with the email where it's getting blocked and so on. Any other questions about the email functionality? Okay, and if someone has one later, we can come back to it. I'll quickly here, just click on eLocker, just to mention that this is where you can see assignments and quizzes that have been handed in. Hopefully we'll have enough time for me to show you what it looks like for a student submitting an assignment, what it looks like for a teacher reviewing it afterwards. Okay, but you can see assignments and quizzes here. We'll talk in just a little bit about posting that content. And I'm going to click here on directory where it's showing me a staff directory. I see a list of all of my coworkers, what building they work in, and their email. Once again, the staff pictures are loaded, you will see your coworkers smiling back at you, or again, maybe something different if picture day didn't go to their liking. Sherry, there's a question here that says, is there a way we can use the email features for documentation? Can you clarify what you mean, please, by documentation? a parent communication log. If you're sending emails from here, obviously it's keeping track of that. I don't know what your requirements are with regarding parent communications log. I mean, you'll see a record of what you sent here. And if you were to send it here and then continue your conversation, meaning if a parent responds and then you continue that conversation in Gmail, if you have requirements as far as, what's the word I'm looking for, like state requirements for keeping that, then that will be in Gmail. I don't know if that answers your question. There is a log here of what's sent out and what's received, but I don't know if you're asking from a standpoint of like state required documentation. So if you have to communicate a certain number of times, that absolutely will be logged in here, just like if you were sending out messages from Gmail, you would see that in your sent items folder. So from that standpoint, it is logged and you can see that. And I should have mentioned here back in email that I can search by the subject or the sender here. So I can search my inbox or sent items over here for record of what I've sent rather than just scrolling through. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, I'm going to click back where it says home over here, okay? And I will reiterate what I said before, is that most of the things I don't even need to go to the class page. I want to show you what the structure looks like over there. But remember that I can click here and do most of the items I can from the class page. So I'm going to click here on, say, English Language Arts. Okay. And once I'm here, again, I can switch from one class to another very easily. But I'm going to show you the types of content that you can post here on your class page, starting with this one that says Class Summary. Okay? And if I click Edit over here, you'll see I have a very easy-to-use editor as far as posting content. I can put it in customized text. I could even embed things like YouTube videos, pictures, and so on right here in my class summary. Okay? Now, the question becomes, well, what can I use this for? We see teachers use it for a variety of different things. Maybe a quick introduction to themselves and the class and what they're going to be covering. Some teachers put their classroom rules or the syllabus right here, even though you'll see that you can attach files in other areas as well. Okay. Some at the high school, I see sometimes they post a picture of the textbook and instructions on accessing publisher resources. All different. I mean, this is your blank canvas to channel your inner Picasso or Rembrandt or whoever your favorite artist is. Okay. But it's very easy to add the content. Welcome to first grade language arts. Okay. So again, I could do things center, bold, make the text larger, and so on. So, basic capabilities, but it gets more advanced if you wanted to. Like I said, embedding pictures, embedding YouTube videos, and so on. Okay. But what I want to point out here is not just how easy it is to add the content in here, but once I've saved this, you'll see on the right-hand side, I have a copy button. Okay. Now, because this is your first year using this, right now when you click copy, you only have this single option here, which is to click on copying it to other sections. In subsequent years, you'll have the ability to put in the, excuse me, to put in and copy from a previous year. Okay, so right now I can just copy it to other ones because this is the first year that I've used it. But in subsequent years, I'll be able to copy it from a previous year. And there was a good question on putting a hyperlinked image. You do have the ability here to insert hyperlinks, absolutely. Okay. So I will show here, that's a good point. I will bring up my school here. I'll log in quickly as as an admin. This is my test school, Optimus Prime Academy. You see a very famous 80s cartoon character. Well, not just 80s cartoon character, also 2000s. They just released a new series on Netflix. And I will log in as a teacher here and show some of the items that I've put in for one of my classes. And I think it's on here. Okay, so here's an example of things I've put in. I've put in for some schools where I'm using this just to redirect them to Google Classroom. I've put a link here to, well, it says my Google Classroom page, AP English. It's really just the Rediker website. But I can put in a link like I've done here, a hyperlink using this option over here. Okay. And then I can edit that and make changes to it. Okay. I've also embedded, this is actually on, not on YouTube, a Vimeo video. I've embedded that right here because one of the things that I can change is I could even embed HTML code. So for those of you that are to that level and want to be able to do things like that, absolutely you can insert things like that over here. I just took embed code and copied it in there. Okay. And I'll keep this open so we can show you on some of the things where I've posted discussions and so on. We'll switch back and forth in my test school between a teacher posting content and then a student going in and maybe taking a quiz or something like that. Okay. But I will switch back to here, and I'm going to edit this and also delete it. Okay. And this is the first thing that parents and students see, this class summary. It's the first thing they see when they log in as a parent or a student to your classroom page. I'm going to scroll down here and Hadid, Harun, Rob, this is something that was added since we last talked, so it wasn't there when we first did this. But now we have the ability to add online meetings. Obviously, with the world the way it is right now, there's going to be at least some virtual communication. So you now have the ability to add links for online meetings. If I click here and I choose custom links and say this is our Zoom meeting room, and I will put in my Zoom link here. Okay. We're going to meet from 10 to 11. And again, I can add it to multiple sections, especially if you're adding, if this is your generic, your personal link, you may want to add it to all of your sections if everyone's going to be using the same link, unless, of course, it's specifically you want to use it for just a particular date and time. So I want to put here where it says schedule meeting, and it's added it over here, and your students will be able to just come in here and click on the link to bring up the Zoom meeting. Now keep in mind that's also something you can add into your class summary. If it's the same link all the time, that's one of the first things that you can put here into the class summary. Zoom meeting room, click here to open our meetings. The idea here is to make it even easier for some of you that maybe aren't used to putting in links and things like that. And there is also a place at the bottom for just generic links. You can also post it over there. But the idea is because online meetings now are so common, it's one of the things we added in there because of feedback from customers. And I will delete it so no one joins my Zoom meeting room. And I'll scroll down a little bit further here and discuss some of the other items that we have here, assignments, class quizzes, and discussions. Okay, and I may switch probably in one of these, I'll switch to mine where I've already got some content posted on there. But I'm going to start here with assignments. Okay, and under assignments, notice that I have where it says visible to parents and students, not visible to parents and students, and all. And we're going to talk more about this in a minute. But collectively, these three items, assignments, class quizzes, and discussions, if you remember when we looked at the student information page, there was a box that said coursework. And that's you as a teacher seeing what coursework has been posted for that student. But just like you have the ability to do that, when parents log in, when students log in, that's one of the first things they see. Here's the coursework combined from all of their classes, so they don't have to go to each individual area and find, here's what's posted for this class, here's what's posted for this class. They can go to an individual class page and see that, but they can look at one single combined coursework box that includes the information from all of these, okay, or at least just the ones that are current, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Okay. So I'm going to click on the right where it says add, and I see two options. I see add a new assignment, meaning add one from scratch, or this option that says assignment from library. You're going to see this word library listed here frequently because as I'm adding content, it's automatically getting added to my library. So if I'm giving the same assignment next year, I don't have to recreate it from scratch. I can just say add the assignment from the library. In fact, it doesn't even have to be from a previous year. If I added an assignment and I meant to add it to multiple courses but didn't and forgot, I can still copy it over to another one or add it from the library. So that ability to reuse content, you'll see that throughout working here in the portal. I'll put my title here as far as what I'm going to name the assignment, similar to what we saw on the gradebook side. In fact, as you'll see in a minute, I can post this to what was asked before. I can post this here for the coursework for parents and students and put a column for it in the gradebook and post it to the calendar all in one shot. Okay, I'll put in some more details about the assignment. I'm going to keep visible to parents and students check. Don't worry, no one's logging in yet. And I'm going to put my due date, which is going to be tomorrow. I am going to deliberately keep visible from and to blank for now, okay, because I want to show you manually toggling that option. But keep in mind what we discussed is that the purpose of posting the assignment here is so that it shows up in the coursework box, okay? And I'm going to switch once we get to moving on to my school. I'll log in as a parent and as a student, give you an idea of what it can look like, not necessarily what it will, because remember that your school has set different permissions potentially. But the idea here is that they're seeing here is the coursework that's upcoming. Maybe I'm a teacher that has the entire year mapped out, global pandemics notwithstanding, and I know from now an assignment that I'm going to give in April. But I probably don't want parents and students to see that from now. Well, I can say that it's going to be visible from April 1st to April 15th, for example. Okay, so I've added it from now, but it won't show up to them until that visible from date hits, and it will no longer be visible to them once that date passes. Okay? Or even if I'm adding it for right now, I may want to put in that it's visible starting today, and it's only going to be visible until, 2 weeks from now or a week from now. Generally, you don't want to put it as the same day as the due date. Give it a few days after that so they can still see that assignment. Okay? Again, I'm going to keep it blank just so you can see what it looks like to manually toggle that. As we've seen before, I have the ability to include a link. I have the ability to attach a file, including from Google Drive, and then I can decide which section or sections I'm posting it to. Now, if I scroll a little bit further down, notice that Post a Calendar, Visible to Parents and Students, and the category Homework are all pre-selected. They're pre-selected because earlier, under Jessica's settings, I logged in and set those as defaults. So if you're a teacher that likes to post your assignments to the calendar, by setting those as the defaults, then I don't have to do those 5 clicks over here. But what I'm going to do in this case, because keep in mind that's just the default, doesn't mean I'm required to do that. I will uncheck that so it's not going to post it to the calendar, just so I have less to clean up. But as I'm posting the assignment, I can at the same time also post it to the calendar. And then I also have this option that says add to gradebook as assignment. Yesterday, obviously, we talked about the gradebook. But if I'm posting an assignment on the portal for parents and students to see, chances are that's something I'm going to be grading afterwards. So rather than make you separately create it in the gradebook, I can just check this box that says add to gradebook as assignment. Okay? I can choose what marking period it's in. And if you are someone that has skills or indicators in your gradebook, you'll see this option over here. And you can choose which skills or indicators you are linking it to. Again, that's only going to be for K to 2. I'll keep it unlinked in this case. I can choose the categories. Again, this will read from what you put up in your gradebook because these are whatever categories you have set up over there. I can put in my maximum possible points, and I can decide whether it's counting in the average. So rather than making you create it in 2 different spots, I can do it from here and add it as a column in the gradebook at the same time. Keep in mind that this is essentially the reverse of what we saw yesterday on the gradebook side. As I'm adding a column, I have an option that says add to PlusPortals as coursework. So if I'm adding it there on the gradebook side, I do have that check to also add it to coursework. It's just the reverse of doing it in here. But from here, I can also post it to the calendar, so in 3 places as opposed to just 2. I'll click Save here. So I post this assignment, and now it's listed over here on the right-hand side. Pen and paper, as we've seen before, allows me to edit that. Trash can to delete it. This little green circle over here with the silhouettes, that indicates that this is visible to parents and students. And if I click on that, that manually toggles the visibility, and now you see it's disappeared from here. The reason it's disappeared is because I'm filtered to only show those assignments that are visible to parents and students. But I can change it to say, show me those that are not visible to parents and students, or show me all of them. Okay? And then now that I've toggled it, I see here the smoking or Ghostbuster sign, however you want to refer to this. And again, I can click and toggle and change it back and forth. But remember that you can set visibility dates. If you already know from the beginning, I want it visible only across this date range, set those up from the beginning, and then I don't have to manually toggle any visibility. It'll take care of it on its own. I also have a button here on the right to copy this to other sections. You saw at the beginning, I can add it to multiple sections from the start, but if I forgot to do that for whatever reason, I'm going to click here and then copy it to other sections. And a little bit later, what I'll do is in my test school, just so as teachers you have an idea what it looks like, I will log in as a student and submit a homework assignment and then show you what it looks like to review that. I'll probably discuss class quizzes first, and then we'll go do both of those on the back end. But before I move on, any questions on posting assignments? Okay. I will start discussing class quizzes here. The first thing I want to focus on is that this is not a test generator or exam builder where I bring it from a library and I generate it as a PDF for something I print and then give to them in class. This is specifically intended for something they're going to take online. The word quizzes, I think, is a little too specific. I think we're going to change that. But think of it as online assessments, whether you use that as just a simple diagnostic tool or whether you are going to be grading it and factoring it in as part of their grade, you'll see that you have both of those as options. So I'm going to click here on the right where it says add. And again, I see I can add a new quiz or I can add a quiz from the library. Okay. And actually for this one, I'll switch to my school. I think this one needs to be zoomed in a little bit as well. Okay, so I've created a bunch of quizzes over here already. I'm going to click New Quiz. Okay. Just like before, I'll put in my description and my title and my description, excuse me. I also recommend that for the description, you often use some directions for what they're going to have on the quiz, because as soon as they started, or right before they started, excuse me, rather, they see the name and they see that. So you might want to say, you know, this quiz will have 300 total questions. Spoiler alert, it won't. Spread across 400 sections, which should be impossible. Okay. You may also choose to tell them some more details on the type of it, but this is one of the things they're going to see when they start the quiz, and you'll see that in a minute. For the duration, if I keep it as 0, then they're not going to have a time limit when completing this. But if I put in something like 15, for example, that's what they're going to have as far as options. I can set my due date, and I can choose from these 5 options over here. If I click visible to parents and students, I can decide when it's going to be visible. Now, right now, this is the only control that you have. One of the things that will be coming is your ability to actually set a start date and time and an end date and time where it's no longer going to be visible. Right now, it's just a manual toggle, but you'll be able to set that up once that's released, where I only want it to be visible starting, say, September 2nd at 5 p.m., and then no longer visible at September 4th, 4 p.m. or something like that. I can allow students to attempt the quiz multiple times, okay, which is usually only used when you're setting it up as a diagnostic or something like that, but that's up to you as a teacher. You'll see that even if I don't enable this, I do have the ability to reset a student's quiz so that if they started taking it and something happened, their power went out, their browser crashed or something like that, you can manually reset it for them. Okay. And then I have where it says the score is visible to the parents and students. So once they complete the quiz, okay, if it's something that grades itself, then they'll be able to see that score as soon as it's graded. If it's something that can't grade itself, grading itself meaning true or false questions and multiple choice entirely, those type of questions. If it's something that can't grade itself as a teacher, you will review that and you'll be able to set in the points for the things that, again, can't grade itself. And at that point, they'll be able to see that score. You also have the option of making the reviewed quiz visible to them. What that means is that rather than just seeing the score, they actually see what they filled in, what the correct answers are. Again, if that's selected and it's something that can grade itself automatically, as soon as it's done, they'll be able to do that. So you wouldn't want to select that if you're giving it to students to take at home and it's something that can grade itself automatically, because that would allow them to potentially share the answers with other students. Okay? But you could always come back in here, and once everyone has finished the quiz, you could enable that at that point. So limiting the number of attempts, essentially, you can't set it, for example, that it's greater than 1, but less than 2 or 5 or whatever it is. Either allow students to attempt multiple times is unchecked, and they can only do it once unless you reset the quiz for them, or it's selected, allow multiple times, and then they can do it as often as they like. Okay? And that's why this is generally used more for if it's going to be a diagnostic or something that might not be graded. Finally, I have this last option that we saw under assignments just a minute ago, which is adding it to the gradebook as an assignment. If this is a quiz I'm giving and it's something I'm going to grade, rather than make you separately create a column for it in the gradebook, I can choose Add to Gradebook as Assignment, choose my categories, and this is my test gradebook, of course, and add it there as a column. Now, because this is a quiz, if it's a quiz that can grade itself automatically, again, all true, false, or multiple choice questions, and I add it to the gradebook as an assignment, once that's done, it will score the quiz and it will put the grade for you in the gradebook. You don't have to do anything else. If it's something that can't grade itself, meaning it has at least one or more of the type of questions, which we'll see in a minute, where you as a teacher have to grade it, and you've also chosen to add it to the gradebook as an assignment, once you finish reviewing the quiz and putting in those scores, then it will transfer that score into the gradebook, so you don't need to do that manually. So that's a nice feature there where you don't have to then take all of those scores and put them into the gradebook. Once it's done grading itself, or once you've done grading it, it will transfer to the gradebook, as long as you have chosen the option of add it to the gradebook as an assignment.
There's a question, Obeda. They want to know if they can limit the number of attempts.
So that was, that's the one I addressed a second ago. Thank you, Susan, where you can essentially limit the number of attempts to 1 when this is unchecked, right? And if you check it, then you can't say allow them to attempt it multiple times, but only 3 or 4 or 5. So either they can only attempt it once when this is unchecked, or you can check it and then they have as many times as they want. But I'll reiterate, and I'll show you this once we switch to viewing quizzes that have been submitted, is that I can reset manually a student's quiz, their ability to retake it. So if this is unchecked, I still have the option of resetting a quiz, and you'll see that a little bit later. Okay, I'll click Next, Add Edit Section. That will save the quiz and take me to building the section. I don't have to create multiple sections. I certainly can, of course, but there has to be at least obviously one section on there. So if you're just putting one section, you can give it a generic name if you'd like. But some teachers like to set up different sections, either to separate the sections by question type, multiple choice, true, false, essay, whatever it is, or by subject area. And an important point here is the ability to randomize the order of the questions within a section, which is also useful if combined with, say, a time limit, right? You randomize the order of your questions. So even if students are on, the phone or Zoom with each other trying to share answers across a quiz, if you've given them a time limit and every one of them is looking at it in a different order, then it's not going to be the same for them. Okay. And again, if I click Save, it just saves it here, and then I can add new sections. But I'm just going to click here where it says Next, Add Edit Questions. And you'll see here that the quiz builder is very simple. It's menu-driven. I have the ability to, in the drop-down box, select from my different types. Essay, and I'll show you what these look like when we're taking a quiz. Essay is where the students will either submit a file or they're going to have an editor where they can type in the essay into the quiz. File upload is not where you are uploading a file. You actually now have that ability for any question. But a file upload question is where the student is submitting a file as the answer to a question. Different kinds of multiple choice, short description where it's just a plain text box that they can type in, or true or false. So I'll click here where it says true or false, and notice that it pre-populates here where it says true or false, but you can change these to anything else, okay? And you'll see that in just a minute. For the question itself, notice that this box looks just like when I was working on the class summary, so I'm not limited to plain text here. I can do all of the same things, including embedding YouTube videos, embedding pictures, embedding HTML. All of that can be set up over here, and that's what they'll see on the quiz. Okay? I'll use a simpler question. Okay, and I can attach a file from here as well, and I'll put the number of points. I'll get to some of the questions that were just asked. Those are good questions. Okay, I can choose to randomize the choices of the answers, but when it's true and false, that's not particularly useful. But again, just because it fills in true or false doesn't mean that I can't change those to something else. Okay, I can put in whatever I want. And then I just click the button here to decide which one is the correct answer. And I'll click save. It adds my question here. And I put that in. Now there's two questions that are essentially the same thing as far as, well actually no, now that I'm reading them, they're not quite. Is the question here, can the students submit the, can the students put in mathematical symbols? If there, it really depends on the type of question, right? If it's something where it's multiple choice or true and false where they're selecting, obviously they won't be able to. But question types where it's file upload, where they can attach a file, or if it's an essay that has the ability in a basic editor, they can embed certain items. I'll have to double check when we switch over to that side. But the easiest thing for them to be able to include, if they're doing kind of long, complicated proofs or something in geometry or something like that, would be to do that via a file upload question, because then they're only limited with what they're using in there, and their upload can also be from Google Drive as well. So if they have that in Google Drive, they'll be able to attach it from there. And from the teacher side, if you're trying to share something with them that is a diagram, find the vertices over here, which angles are congruent, things like that, the easiest thing to do with that is just embed it as an image. That's the easiest way to have it, right? You can obviously, there are items here for subscript and superscript, but there's not an equation editor built in here. So you can copy and paste that from elsewhere, or just embed it as an image. That's usually the easiest way to handle that. And remember, you can also, this is actually literally added last week, the ability to attach a file to it as well. So that can be whatever type of file you want, and they'll be able to see that when answering the question. I have different kinds of multiple choice over here. Drop down is exactly what it sounds like. They're selecting from a drop down. One answer is radio buttons. And then I have this one here that says multiple choice, multiple answers. Okay. And whenever I choose any of the multiple choice options, I have here where it says it introduces a single answer, and I can just keep clicking add another answer to add as many as I want. So there's a question here, can students also upload a file while answering a question? If it's only the file upload question allows you to upload a file, at least for right now, and then you can also put in a description of the file over there. So they can't upload a file when they're answering, say, a multiple choice question. Okay, I'm picking easy questions over here. Put it as 40. I'm visiting my brother in Kansas City, so Kansas City barbecue has to be on there, obviously. Okay. Now, this is multiple choice, multiple answer. What that means is that I can click set as correct answer on multiple options over here. Another thing I have with multiple choice, multiple answers is the ability to check this over here where it says allow partial credit for correct answers. So if I select that here, I have the option to essentially hard code the partial credit. I can say this is a 40-point question. If they answer all of the above, I'm going to give them 25 points. Okay? And if they answer each of these individually, I'll give them 5 points, which means that if they answer just this, then they get 25. If they answer all of them together, then they're going to get the 40. And it checks to make sure that it adds up to that. I'll set this as 1 here and say save, and it says you haven't added up properly. Now, while I'm adding questions here, notice that it's also summing the total of the points. And you want to make sure as a teacher, if you've set this to add to the gradebook as a column, that this sum of the points matches whatever you put in as the maximum possible points for your quiz when initially setting it up. I'll switch in just a minute to show you what it looks like for a student taking the quiz, but before we do that, does anyone have any questions on actually adding the questions over here? Okay, I'm going to click here where it says back to class summary. And we see here that the quiz is listed at the bottom. I can edit the quiz. I can delete it just like we put that in, and then click on where it says preview if I want to preview what the quiz looks like. And keep in mind that this functions like an answer key. Don't worry, when your students take the quiz, it will highlight in green and bold the correct answers for them, because that would defeat the purpose of taking a quiz. There's a question on should we put the maximum points with extra credit then? If you want them to essentially be able to get more than the maximum possible points, then you, let's say, if they answered everything correctly, they should be able to get 105 out of 100. Then you would put the maximum possible points to be 100, but you would put the total of the questions to be able to add up to 105. That would be how the extra credit would work, because if you put that the maximum points is 105 and then the points add up to 105, that won't give them extra credit. They have to answer all of them correctly to get the 100%. So if you want to include extra credit in there, just make it so that the sum of the points is a little bit more than what the maximum possible points, and you could handle the extra credit that way. Okay? But you don't want to do the reverse where you make it out of 100, but all of the questions only add to 50 points, because then they won't ever be able to get all of the points. I'm going to log in as, or rather, I'm just going to go to the eLocker here for a second, and I'm going to reset the quiz for one of my students. We'll come back here in a minute. And I'll reset it. This, by the way, we'll come back in here and talk more about this. But this button here is the reset button. So it's going to wipe out what they have, and then it's going to set it so that they can't take it again. There's a question here on can you add a show your work option like Go Formative allows. I'm not familiar with Go Formative, but there is nothing in here as far as an option that says show your work. Depending on what they have as far as what question type in there, part of their answer can be showing that. But that means it would have to be something other than multiple choice or true and false. So if you have that on there and you want them to show their work, then probably you want to have it as a different question. That may be more as a sort of looking for, like for a math question or something like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to Manage Accounts, okay, and I'm going to log in as a student. And now keep in mind, I'll just briefly show you some of the things here. Keep in mind that this is what it can look like for students, not necessarily what it will look like. I want to emphasize that. But I'm logged in as a student over here. I see my progress. I see scores. I see attendance totals and some discipline information. This poor kid is alphabetically first, so he gets blamed for everything. Okay. I see if there are online meetings posted. And then they see here, this is a coursework box where they're seeing all of their coursework. Okay. And you see that it's split up into discussions, quizzes, assignments. We'll talk about discussions in just a minute. I'm going to start with submitting an assignment. Okay, and I see it listed here. Notice this one that's highlighted in orange or whatever, amber or something like that. That means that it's due today. But I'll choose a different one. Okay, this is an assignment. I can email the teacher. I can submit the assignment. I can mark it as completed. I'm going to go and click on submit the assignment. And this is an important point. If you want your students to submit something via the portal, you have to create an assignment for it. Right? I don't think it's generally a problem that students are trying to submit their own homework because they're so enthused about the work. But the key point here is that you can't just tell the students, go submit something on the portal if you haven't created it yet. Okay? Because a student can go to the e-locker and click on upload and then choose from their list of classes and then choose from the assignments. Okay? But I have just logged in the coursework box and said submit this assignment, and it already populates into here. They can put in a description and comments. They don't have to. Okay. And then for the assignment itself, they could either type it in here, attach a file, or those aren't mutually exclusive. They could do both depending on what your instructions are. Okay, and they can also include a link. I'll go ahead and submit the assignment, and then it's prompting the student, do you want to email the teacher with more information? I'm going to say no. And I see it posted over here. Now, you'll notice that it's got the date and the timestamp, what's been posted, anything they put in the descriptions and the comments in there. And what you'll also notice is that some of these have teacher's comment in there. Okay, anything where the teacher has put in a comment is listed there. So I can click on that and see the teacher's comments. Again, I'm not dealing with real people, so I'm allowed to say whatever I want to my fake students and my fake parents. So you'll probably type in comments a little bit different than this, but you'll see in a minute when we go back to the teacher side where you can type in your comments. Okay. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go back to my home page. I want to go back to see that so you can see it in the coursework box and take the quiz. Okay. And I'm going to go, because I didn't update the date, I'll go to past due coursework. Okay. And I'm going to use this quiz just just so you have an idea of what it looks like. On this quiz, I created one of each question type. Okay. So notice that whatever I type into the description box, this shows up over here. So this is where you could put in, maybe give them an idea of how many questions there are going to be, how many sections there are, any other instructions you want. A good place to put that would be the description. And then it also gives them what the time limit is. Okay, so I'm going to click Start Quiz here. Okay. So this is the one that says multiple choice, one answer. This is the one that has the radio buttons. Okay. Notice what it gives them at the top is total duration. It's counting down over here. It also tells them how many of the questions they have answered. They could click here to move back and forth between the questions. Okay. And if I just save, it saves and it stays on this. And notice that it highlights this in green, lets me know that I finished that question. Okay. This is a file upload question, okay, where I can click on select files and choose from there. Okay, and I can put in my description over here. Oh, actually, I will attach one of the CSVs that we've worked on. Here, Citizenship Academy section list. This is a short description one where they can type in here, but there aren't any controls. So this is just plain text answers. Okay. This is an essay question where they have the box here and you see the controls as far as customizing, including putting in images, embedding links, tables, and so on. Okay. But they could also attach a file over here. This is multiple choice, multiple answer. So notice that these are check boxes, right? As opposed to the radio buttons, because I can choose more than one. Okay? And this is multiple choice drop down where I'm just choosing from the drop down here. And then this is a true or false question where it's only showing two and it's radio buttons. Okay. And now when I've done, I've finished all of this here. And I can click finish and submit. Now, one of the things that was just added on Friday, actually, is that if a student hasn't completed all of the questions and they click to submit, it gives them a warning that's saying, you have not completed all of the questions. Are you sure you want to submit? Also, those ability to attach files to every question that was just added on Friday as well. And that's an important point because if there are things in the software that you'd like to see, we have an area of our website dedicated to submitting feature requests. Now, as teachers, you won't have access to that, but your admin team will, and you can pass that information along to them, and they can submit those feature requests, and the development team sees that and builds the software based on that feedback. Okay? So I just went in as a student, and I submitted an assignment, and I submitted a quiz. I'm going to go back and log in as a teacher so we can see what that looks like. And actually, before I do that, so this is a quiz where the student has completed that, but because I've set it where it has a question of every type, the score is pending. And if they click view over here, then they're just seeing what they put in. They're not seeing what the correct answers are because the review has not been completed and made visible to them. Okay? If you're not seeing an option, Taylor, that has to be set on the admin side. So if you're only seeing assignment and discussion options, just let us know which school you're with, and then that will be enabled on the admin side. So again, it says the score is pending. They're not seeing it, and they can't see the reviewed quiz versus something where it's already been reviewed. You see here where it says this is reviewed. They can bring up the, oh, this one is set to where it hasn't been available to them. So let me see, different one. One of these is set to that. There. So they can see what it is that they've done. You'll see it in a minute. I'll come back in and show that. And Khadir, just Utica seems like they're not seeing the quizzes option. So you can just go under the teacher permissions and set that. And I can go over this with you once we're done. But the class quizzes is enabled. Okay. So I'm going to log back in as the teacher. And we're going to see what the student has submitted. All right, so I'm going to click here on where it says eLocker. Okay, and I see a tab for my assignments. I see whatever the student has submitted. Now I can filter to show just a certain class or a specific assignment. By default, I'm seeing all of them, but I can filter down to specific ones if I want. So I see that the student that submitted it, the class, the assignment. If they put in a description and comments, I see them there. And whatever it is they submitted, I will see that. If they typed into that box, it just gives you this long file name, which is just an HTML file, which I will bring up here. Okay. But if they've attached something else, which I have somewhere over here, yes, like if they've attached our cloud services guide, which seems unlikely, but if they've attached a PDF or another document, you'll just see it here, and then you'll open it up from here. And it opens however your computer's set to open those. If they have they've included a link, you'll also see it listed over here. But these icons on the right, anyone that's plain paper, this is where you haven't yet put in a comment. Anyone that is filled in, this is where you've already gone in and put in a comment. You can go back and edit that. Okay, and even with the comments, you do have the ability to, you've got basic options here for formatting text and even putting in, bulleted lists and embedding images and so on. And now that I've put that in, I see that icon there, and the student is going to see that on their end. So there's, sorry, I think I missed this question earlier. Can you take a note on their submitted exams to show their mistakes? In a minute, you'll see once I grade it, and I'll edit that for them to see the results. They're actually going to see, if you've set them to be able to see the reviewed quiz, what the correct answers are. Okay? So I'll switch over to quizzes here, and I'll change to class quizzes. Okay, and this is the one that's just been submitted. Notice that it says review needed. It's letting me know that a review is needed for this. And it's showing me the score so far. In this case, it looks like I didn't answer any of the automatically graded questions correctly. It will give you a temporary score on what's been automatically graded if they've gotten any of them correct. And then when I click review needed, I'll see that. So anything that's an essay question, for example, it's not automatically graded. We'll give them 2 points. Okay. I see that they've attached a CSV file. We'll give them 5 points. By the way, these are not drop downs. These are just because I've done this before. And Chrome is saving what I've put in for. They answered the correct one over here, so it's filled in the 10. This was a multiple choice, multiple answer. So they answered one of the correct questions and an incorrect one. And because we've hard-coded partial credit, because they answered one of them, it gave them 10 out of the 20 points. I guessed right over here, so that's 30. This is the short description, not graded automatically, so I will put in 0 for this. And then at the bottom, this is the last one. This was also a true or false question. They answered it correctly. And it's going to look on the student side as well, similar to this where they see that. But notice also you see the time that they started and the time they submitted. So if that seemed like a really short period of time, then, you know, there may be unwanted collaboration afoot. So you'll be able to see that here. And once I'm done, once I've filled in all this, I can check that the review has been completed. And I'll choose Save and Close. Now over there, it no longer says the review is needed, and it's filled in their score according to what I've put in. Okay. And as long as, and I'll go and double check this, as long as I've set it where they can view the reviewed quiz, and I'll change that here so we'll be able to see that, then when I log in on the student side, they're going to be able to see those details. Okay, good. I have set Make Reviewed Quiz visible to parents and students. And so I'll just log back in as the student quickly so you can see what it looks like once you've made the reviewed quiz available to them. Okay, I'll click here on the locker and under quizzes. So they see the score that you've put in for all of them. For anything that has correct answers, you know, this is a file attachment, this is an essay, it doesn't have a correct answer the same way that this one does. But this is what they're going to see when they're looking at a reviewed quiz. There's a question here that can set a date, how they will see the correct, this is how they'll see the correct answers. Is the question, can you set a date of when they're going to see the reviewed quiz? If that is the question, you can't set a specific date that the reviewed quiz is only going to be visible at a certain time. What you would do in this case is that you would keep it unchecked at the beginning and then just check it, although that is a good idea to add as a feature to be able to say, you know, make it visible starting on a certain date. But as of right now, it doesn't work that way. Your only option is to keep it unchecked at the beginning so no one sees it inadvertently, and then just go in and check it, that make reviewed quiz visible, and save once you're done. So let me log back in as Steve Carter, the teacher, and I'm going to discuss some of the other items. Are there any other questions on quizzes before I move forward? Okay. While I'm waiting, in case there are any other questions, I'm going to talk about discussions in just a minute. But before I do that, I'll just point out some of the other items that I can post here. Class announcements and alerts. And anything that's in red, this is an alert. Okay? And if I click Add New, so I just draw some more attention to those. If I click Add New, the first thing it prompts me is this an announcement or an alert? And the difference being that an announcement is just in black, an alert is in red. But beyond that, it's the same information regardless of which one I'm choosing, and it's similar to what you've seen in other areas. I can put in a title and a description, put my start and end date, decide who it's visible to, what sections I'm posting it to, and whether I'm attaching a file or including a link. And on the subject of attaching files and including links is that I have a dedicated links and file section. You've seen as we've been adding other content like assignments, like calendar events, and so on. I can include a link, I can attach a file, but I do have this dedicated links and files section that a lot of teachers like to use as their general resource library. In fact, some teachers also post anything they've attached to any other content into the links and files section, okay? And one of the things that's unique about the links and files, if I click Add New here on the right, is the ability to create folders. Okay, maybe I'm sharing a lot of links or a lot of files, and I don't want everything just lumped into the class folder. I want to separate it out into PDF reviews for tests, okay, science fair resources, things like that. I want to structure them in different folders so it's easier for them to access and not everything is lumped into a folder. You don't have to, obviously, but that's especially useful if you're sharing a lot of links and files. So I'm going to scroll up here, and we're going to talk about discussions. That's one of the other things that's relatively recent to the portal, is the ability to post discussions so you can have discussions with your students. Okay? And again, you see here where, just like with the assignments, I have those that are visible, those that are not visible, or all of them. I'm going to click here on the right where it says Add, and choose the one that says New Discussion. For the discussion builder, I'm just going to put in a title. So I can put in a title. Description is optional, but they'll see it listed there. And then the discussion prompt, notice that this is where you can add all the same things that you saw under the class summary or on a quiz question, including embedding YouTube videos, images, HTML, anything that I want to put on there, okay? I can put in character requirements, okay, a minimum and a maximum number of options. I don't have to, but for example, if you want to make sure that students don't just type in, one word or something like that, I can say that you have to put in at least 10 characters or 50 characters or 100, whatever it is you'd like. And you can also put in a max up to 9,999, I think is the max, although that's probably too high. If you don't want students to go a little bit too 7 years ago, rewrite the entire Magna Carta in the discussion prompt. So I will put something simple here like 10 to 200. Okay, I'll put in a due date, and just like we've seen before, I can include a link, I can attach files, including from Google Drive. This is a very nice option that a lot of teachers use, which is hide replies initially. What this means is that when it's selected, students, when they bring up the discussion, will only be able to see what the teacher has posted. They won't be able to see any replies that other students have put in, even if they've already made those, until they initiate a reply from there. So if you don't want them kind of copying off what other students wrote, you can set it so that the replies are initially hidden until they contribute to the discussion. And then you also have the ability to close the discussion at a certain date and time. And then finally, I can choose to just click here and post it to whichever sections I want. Okay, and I'll keep it for just AP English for now. because this is being recorded, not just because also. Okay, so just so we've gotten that on the record, and I do indeed love them both very much, despite the bruises. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Okay, so this discussion has been saved. I can send out an email notification as well. I'm just going to click OK here. And now it takes me back to if I want to post an additional discussion. But I'm going to click back to Overview, and I'll scroll down and I'll see a list of all the discussions that I've posted. Okay? Now, if I click on Actions beside any of these, I have the option of going to the discussion. That's the same as clicking here on the name of the discussion. I can go back and edit that. It takes me to the same page that I was just on. I can hide the discussion so that nobody is seeing it anymore, or I can delete it. I can send an email to everyone from here. And then finally, I have these two options. I can lock and unlock the discussion. That's different than making it hidden, because making it hidden, no one sees it. Locking and unlocking, if I were to lock it, they'd still see it, but they wouldn't be able to make any contributions. But I can also lock and unlock individual students. So if I see a few students that are not being very productive in their contributions, I can click on here and I can choose to lock individual students. Okay? I won't do that here in this case, but just know that you have that as an option. Okay? Now, I'm seeing it over here. Here's the title. Here's the here's the title. Here's the description, and then here's what I wrote. Okay? What I'm going to do is I can, as a teacher, I can reply to the topic from here. Okay, but now I'm going to log in as a student so you can see what it looks like for them contributing to the discussion. Okay, here under coursework, I see the discussion I just created. I also see other discussions that I've added in here. I can just click here and that will take me to the discussion. The student's going to see anything that I have posted. Click reply, and you see here the controls they have when adding to the discussion. If I could type properly. Okay, so Jeremiah has put in a response here. I'm going to go back in and log in as a different student. And now I have to remember who else is in this class. I think Kendall is. Okay, yes she is. So I will bring up that same discussion. And notice that even though Jeremiah has already made a response, already put in a response, Kendall can't see that. That's because I set that option that says hide replies initially. Okay, so she's seeing only what the teacher has posted. Actually, I will just type in a single word here and try and submit. And notice that it says, again, because I've put in a requirement for the minimum and maximum, it's not going to allow that. But when I submit here, now she's seeing Jeremiah's response, because hide replies initially is just at the beginning. Once they've posted, then they can see that. Now, as a student, They can go and edit and delete their reply. They can reply to other students as well. So this is where you can have those discussions set up. I'm going to go back to logging in as the teacher. So you can see the options they have there. There's a good question here. Can you decide if the students can edit or delete? No, they have the ability to edit and delete their responses, although as you're going to see right now, so you can't limit that, but you as the teacher also have the ability to edit and delete their responses. So I can go in for a student, I can edit a reply, I can delete a reply, and obviously I can reply to individual ones here. And as mentioned, I can go back and lock certain students out of the discussion. I can lock the discussion itself. There's another question here. Can we see the previous responses then? Meaning, if a student responded and deleted, would you see that? It's a good question. I don't think so, but I'll make a note of that to test that. I think once if they've deleted the response, then it's no longer there. But that is a good question. I'll have to test that. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but I can test that to make sure. In fact, we can test that quickly now. Are there any questions, while I'm doing that, are there any questions on the discussions? Okay, he's deleted his response, so he's back to not seeing anything. So no, it's gone. We don't see it any here. We don't see it anymore once the student has deleted that. Any other questions regarding discussions? And this is something where after a certain amount of time, it will log you out of the portal, but it'll give you a countdown timer if you want to stay signed in. And I'm glad I came back here so I can delete the homework assignment that I put in telling everyone to read all the books in the library by tomorrow. Okay. Any questions about the various items that we've posted on here? Good question. So there's an option, there's a question here on, do you get a notification when students respond to a discussion? If I click under settings over here, okay, for discussions, you have the option of saying, I want to be notified when a student submits a response, either with an email notification or a PlusPortal message, which is only internal to the portal. So this is one of the things that you have the option of enabling as a teacher, and that's specific to you. Someone asks if they could annotate the content here. I'm assuming that's a mistake. Austin, if there's a question that you want to ask, by all means, if that was just a mistake that you clicked on to request drawing on the screen, let us know. So this is where you can set up if you're getting an email notification, and this is specific to discussions. For the other items, if they submit a quiz and so on, the assignment, all of that is going to be under the e-locker. You'll see whatever it is that they have submitted in there. Although, as you saw with the assignment, the student has the option of saying, I'm going to submit send an email to the teacher to let them know. So if you want that, you can tell your students to send you an email when they submit assignments. Any other questions on posting the content? And while we're waiting for those, Khadija, did you want to, even though it hasn't been set up yet on the back end, did you want to show submitting discipline incidents via the portal?
I mean, we can show quickly, and for everyone else, this setup is progressing every day. For example, we have attendance training with some administrative staff members tomorrow at noon. We're going to have discipline training followed by attendance. Then we're going to have portfolio training, which we never experienced portfolios online on our SIS before. So some things might be readily available. This is one of them, the discipline. We're going to work on it. We're going to enter all the codes, learn about it. But we can display, at least it will be recorded, and we'll be able to go back to the recording and check and see how it functions.
Okay.
Even though it's not entirely working, Obeda can show us what it features.
Okay, so I'll switch to mine just so that way, even if I can actually go through the submission process so that we don't have to sign up one of your students for that. I can click from any of these. I can click on where it says go to discipline. One thing I want to make clear is that, like Khadija said, this is not set up with your codes yet as far as what your disciplines are. We're using My Test School as well, but you will see the discipline on your side. And some of the settings haven't been necessarily configured how they may end up working for you. But I've selected here, again, notice that if I was already on the overview tab, I don't have to go back to the home page and then click go to discipline. That's just a shortcut to get to that, just like the shortcut to getting to students. When I'm on here, I can click on discipline over here. I can select a specific student. And again, this poor kid is alphabetically first, so he gets blamed for everything. And I'm seeing the history, the discipline history that I filled out for that student. Okay. I can also instead choose all students and set a specific date range and see everything that I've posted there. I think it's been a while since I've posted something. There. But I'm going to select a specific student here. And this is where I can view the discipline here under where it says incident submittal. This is where I can submit something to the office as a discipline incident. So I'm going to click add. It automatically puts in today's date, although I can set that obviously to a different date if I'd like. And then the first thing I put in is what the infraction is. So I click add and I see a list of all of the infractions. Again, this will be populated with the things that are specific to your school. I will select one over here. You may have it where it automatically populates an action. This is something, again, that you'll be given more instruction on. It may be that if the discipline is decided on the office side, whatever fills in here, you're just supposed to keep. And otherwise, you may be able to add that. There is a question here where it says, how do we put in discipline for students that are not in our class? I don't have it enabled on mine, but I can go and do that. If it would be enabled, you can just select the grade level, and then you can select from any of the students in your school. So that would be on the page where we selected a student. Right below that, you'd have the option of selecting a grade level. So if that gets enabled for you, it'll be on that very first page where you can select the grade level, select the student, and then do the same thing I'm doing now. Good question. It automatically fills in your name as the teacher, but if there was somebody else also involved and you want to add their name, you can do so. And this will obviously fill in the list of teachers from your school. Where it says place, this could be a location or a time. Okay, and I can add comments in here. And served is probably something that you won't put in. Usually that's where, unless the teacher's handling the detentions, you know, an in-class detention or an after-school detention, and then you're marking that they've served that. Usually that is handled on the office side, so you'll probably keep that blank. Again, once your school does the discipline training, you'll get more detailed instructions on how to set this up and what to leave alone and what to fill out. But at the bottom, we can say, all right, we're going to cancel entering this in here, or we can print it. And then save will save this and stay on this screen, versus done will save this and go back to the previous screen that we were looking at, which I'll do in just a second. But submit is actually what submits this to the office, to whoever it is that will be handling discipline at your school. So once I click that, it says you will not be able to edit or delete the incident once it's submitted. Are you sure you want to? I'm going to say no here for just a second, just so that you can see where I'm going to click done and add it here on the bottom. I'm seeing it listed. I can decide whether I'm viewing that. I can go back in and edit that. I can delete it. Or if I want to actually submit an incident, then I just click on this icon here and submit. And now, once I submit it to the office, actually this is the one I just posted. It hadn't popped up yet. But I see it listed here, and once I submit that, that's what sends it to the office. And then at that point, they'll be able to pull that in and receive that into the student's record. Again, that's going to be something you'll get a little bit more instruction on as far as what each particular school wants you to fill in or leave alone. But I just wanted to give you a quick, here's how you can view that information, a student's discipline history, or submit that incident. And that puts us right around at the end time. Thank you, everyone, again for joining. If you have any questions, please include them in the chat. But Qadir, do you have anything to add, or Harun, Rob?
Well, thank you, Obeida and Rediker team who is on the call, Susan and Shelly. We truly appreciate your efforts. Again, this recording will be made available and hopefully very soon. And as a follow-up, Mr. Carter will run a 2-hour session on Friday for Syracuse schools. Mr. Shekhar will run again at the same time for Utica schools. So we are planning to split it up to actually work in smaller groups. If you are still interested in like learning more, and they will go over the same things, and you can join our Friday session. And that's it. Thank
Okay,
you.
and I will just reiterate again that in the top right, I have a help button that takes me to a user guide, just like you saw on the gradebook side, and it's split up into, discussions. How do I post a discussion? How do I hide and show it? And there are also some videos as well. Thank you again, everyone, for your time. Have a great rest of the day. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case there are any questions. Have a great day, great school year, and hopefully it'll eventually get back to some